AMD Zen 5 based Ryzen 9000 series CPUs are worthless. You shouldn't buy these CPUs. They only have 16% IPC improvement. Heck, the Ryzen 7800X 3D can beat the Ryzen 9 9900X. AMD is no longer the savior for us gamers. Well, I hate to break it to you, they never were. Contrary to Reddit and YouTube comment section beliefs, these new Ryzen 9000 CPUs are not worthless. I'm not playing the devil's advocate, nor I have special place in my heart for AMD, but I think that people are missing the point with these new Ryzen CPUs. And it kinda AMD's fault here. They made a seriously good CPU with Ryzen 7 7800X 3D, and it's still kinda very hard to beat their CPU. It is not only one of the most fastest gaming CPU that is out there, but also it has amazing value. The biggest complaint that people have with these new Ryzen 9000 series CPUs that generationally it only comes with 16% IPC improvement. Well, come close here. That is normal. Forget about normal. That is kind of good. And I know the first generation Ryzen CPUs came at a 52% generational IPC improvement, and that is because AMD's previous CPUs, the Bulldozer CPUs, were kind of bad, like they were hella terrible. And after that, we are getting under 20% generational improvement with Ryzen CPUs, and we have been happy with that. And the reason behind Ryzen's immense success, because Intel was stuck at 14 nanometer and high-end Intel CPUs only had 4 cores. But AMD right now is also kind of stuck in the same loop. Ryzen CPU's core count hasn't improved. Still, 16 core is the most you can get with a consumer level Ryzen CPU. And on paper, if we compare the specs between the Ryzen 9000 series and 7000 series, that doesn't look that much improvement. We are not seeing huge spec bump. For example, the 9900X and the 7900X has the same clock speed. The 9700X is 5.5 GHz compared to Ryzen 7's 7700X, and the 9600 and 9700 are also looks the same. So on paper, the specs looks really similar, but to see the real improvement in these 9000 series CPUs, you have to look a little bit closer. The major difference between Ryzen 9000 and Ryzen 7000 series CPUs are the TDP. The Ryzen 9000 series CPUs are way more power efficient compared to Ryzen 7000. These new Ryzen 9000 series CPUs are promising you the performance improvement, whatever the minimal performance improvement it has, at the half of the power if we compare it to Ryzen 7000. The 9600X comes at a 65 watt TDP compared to 7600X's 105 watts. That's a 40 watt difference, and that is a lot. Now I know TDP rating from brands are not the be all end all when it comes to calculating power efficiency of a CPU. Reviewers needs to do independent tests, and then only we will know the real story. But we can make little educated guesses. For example, because these CPUs are so power efficient, at least on paper, we can expect more overclocking headroom. And that's why we are getting rumors that the upcoming Ryzen 9000 X3D chips will get a full manual overclocking support. Previously, with older generation X3D chips, you didn't have the option to manually overclock. At best, you can use Precision Boost Overdrive, which is AMD's version of auto overclocking, and by that it will tune your CPU so you can push 1 or 2 megahertz more. And that is what I want to talk in this video. For past few years in CPUs, we are seeing astronomical power draw numbers, especially if we look at newer generation Intel CPUs. They are drawing so much power, and that is frying their CPU. So now Intel has to roll out an update where they are cutting power, and that is directly affecting the performance of those CPUs, which is ironic to be honest, but it is true. You cannot increase the power draw generationally and make a 600 watt CPU. It's impossible, because then you need to cool that CPU, and that's is a harder task. Not only it's hard, but it also going to be much more costly. Cooling a higher TDP or a high power draw CPU is very hard. You need special cooling. A normal size air cooler won't cut it. You need beefy air coolers, liquid coolers, or special custom water cooling loop. And for these reasons, these new AMD CPUs are really interesting to me. And I know if you want to spend your hard-earned money, you want its full value worth. And for a lot of people, this generation won't be worth upgrading. If you are already on a AM5 system, that means you are using a Ryzen 7000 series or 7000 X3D CPU. Generationally upgrading, whether it's CPU, GPU, doesn't really brings the most value out of that purchase. But if you are on an AM4 system, that means you're using 5000 series, 3000 series, 2000, or heck, the first generation Ryzen CPUs, even then I will ask you to wait for a while. According to rumors, the X3D CPUs, or for these generations X3D CPUs, are coming really soon, and then they might get a little bit more interesting. But even after all that, I don't think that these new Ryzen 9000 series CPUs are worthless. I think they are a stepping stone or a building block what is for there to come from AMD. I think they are planning something big down there. Now, these all are assumptions, so don't take my word for it. But I think in future we will see Ryzen CPUs which are not only performant but also going to be much more power efficient. And that is not only good for the desktop industry, but I think that is also good for the mobile industry, because the ARM architecture is making some long strides. With Apple, we have seen like a physics bending chip that is not only powerful but also so power efficient, and at the same time Snapdragon X series CPUs, well, there are some mixed opinions about that, but you cannot deny that those CPUs are giving you performance, but at the same time they are so power efficient that the battery life is uncomparable if we compare it with any x86 Windows laptop. But at the end of the day, this video and everything I said in it doesn't really matter, because what I am basing my opinions are based on the paper specs. I don't know how the real world performance is, and I won't know until reviewers independently test these CPUs and test on real world scenario, and then they give their test result. Then and only then we can make sure that are these CPUs worthless or not, or we need to buy it, or is it worth it for you upgrading or buying it or not. And for that we need to wait a little while, then we will know the real story and the full story behind these new Ryzen 9000 series CPUs. Until then, what you can do is like my video if you liked it. If you haven't disliked the video, feel free to do it. It will hurt, it always hurt when you dislike, but okay, it's okay, there is the dislike button, it's free. And let me know in the comment section what do you think, that are these new Ryzen CPUs are worthless or not. And if you want to watch more videos from us, check out this video right here. And if you want to subscribe, well, do it by here. And this is Akash, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.